You may have noticed when dividing decimals without a calculator that sometimes it's practical to multiply by a power of 10 to get rid of the decimal. Now this isn't always the case, even though you can always multiply by a power of 10, sometimes it's an unnecessary step. So today we're going to talk about when you should and when you shouldn't get rid of a decimal in a division problem. So we have the problem 7 divided by 0.7. In any division problem, when it's written in this form, the first number, in this case 7, is called your dividend. The dividend is the number that is being divided. Now the second number in this kind of division problem is called your divisor. That is the number being divided into your dividend. We are dividing 7 by 0.7. Now another way to write this, and one way that I'm sure you're familiar with, would be 0.7 dividing into 7. That's a terrible 7. I can do better. There we go. So the first thing you'll notice here is that we've flip-flopped. Now our dividend comes second, whereas our divisor comes first. As long as you know which number is your divisor and which number is your dividend, you can tell whether you need to get rid of the decimal. And it's easy. You should get rid of the decimal if it appears in your divisor. But if a decimal appears in your dividend, then you can keep it. And we'll talk about why in just a moment. But for this problem here, we have 0.7 divided into 7, and the decimal is in our divisor. So we need to get rid of it. How do we do that? We multiply both sides by 10, or however many places we need to move the decimal. For example, if the decimal was over here, we would need to multiply it by 100 because we would need to move it 2 places. But in this case, we only multiply by 10 because we only need to move that decimal 1 place to the right. What we do to the divisor, we must also do to the dividend. So we end up with 7 divided into 70. And you can probably do this in your head. Comes to 10. 7 will go into 70 10 times. So let's go ahead and mark that. And there we have it. So we did multiply by 10 to get rid of the decimal because the decimal appeared in the divisor. However, as we said, if it would have appeared in the dividend, that would not have been necessary. So let's do a problem where the decimal appears in the dividend. So now we have a problem where our decimal appears in the dividend rather than the divisor. And as we mentioned, this actually makes our problem a little easier because we do not have to multiply by a power of 10 to get rid of the decimal. We can just divide rather, straight through. So we have 8 going into 4.64. And we're just going to do this as though that decimal were not there. The only thing we need to do first is just to move this decimal up directly above itself to appear that way in the quotient. And I'll show you why that's important in just a moment. So we're going to put our decimal there, again, directly above where it was in the dividend, and we're just going to divide 8 into 464 as though the decimal were not there. So 8 does not go into 4. 0 times 8 is 0. Subtract there to get 46. 8 will go into 46 5 times. 5 times 8 is 40. And then we have to drop our final 4 here, and 8 goes into 64 evenly 8 times. So our quotient in this case is 0.58. Now, we could have multiplied everything by a power of 10 to get rid of the decimal. Then we would have had to do the same thing over here. And we would have still ended up with 0.58 as our answer. But that would have been an unnecessary step because when the decimal appears in the dividend, you can just move it right up to the quotient and you don't have to worry about that step. So let's go ahead and put in our answer. Check. So just remember, if your decimal appears in the divisor, then you do want to get rid of it. But if it appears in your dividend, then you can just keep it as it is and move it up.